A relationship with zero conflict is not automatically healthy. It might be avoidant, suppressed, or even politically unsafe. Conflict is not proof that coordination failed. Often, it is the first real diagnostic signal. What matters most is not the triggering moment. The response pattern matters more. One sharp comment can become useful feedback if it gets acknowledged and integrated. One missed deadline can become a stronger operating agreement if someone takes ownership and changes the handoff protocol. The same events can also harden into a durable fracture when people deflect, escalate, or punish honesty. Start by treating conflict as a decision object, not a courtroom. Courtroom logic pushes you toward winning the narrative. It turns one person into plaintiff, the other into defendant. That frame is sometimes necessary in legal disputes or severe misconduct. In everyday work and life, it usually destroys information you need for repair. A more useful frame is diagnostic. What happened? What each person inferred? What impact it created? What incentive, constraint, or expectation produced it? What correction would prevent recurrence? And what evidence would prove the repair is real? There are 5 decision layers that sit underneath almost every conflict. First is the trigger, the observable event that created tension. Next is meaning, what each side thinks the event indicates. Then stakes, what is at risk if it stays unresolved. Fourth is repair capacity, whether the parties can acknowledge, update, and change behavior. Fifth is the exit threshold, the point where continued engagement becomes unsafe or structurally unworkable. That exit threshold is important because not every conflict is meant to be repaired. Some conflicts are data. They tell you the system cannot support trust at the level you are assuming. Most conflicts are also stacked. Someone says, "You cut me off in the meeting." That one sentence can hide several different problems. It might be coordination, like speaking order or facilitation. It might be information, where one person had context the other lacked. It might be expectations, like an assumed norm that was never made explicit. It might be boundaries, where a limit got crossed. It might be status, because the interruption diminished someone in public. It might be trust, because it confirms a prior concern about respect or reliability. Or it might be values, where the parties disagree about what conduct is acceptable. Bad handling collapses the stack into one global accusation. Good handling separates layers and starts with observable signals. You interrupted me 3 times before I finished the proposal. The person stopped contributing after the second interruption. There was no facilitation rule, and a senior stakeholder was in the room. The same pattern happened in the last 2 planning meetings. Notice what that does. It moves from vibes to data, without turning the other person into a villain. Once you have observable signals, classify what you are actually disagreeing about. Sometimes it is about facts, what happened. Sometimes it is about meaning, what it implies. Sometimes it is about impact, how serious it was. Sometimes it is about responsibility, who needs to correct what. And sometimes it is about future protocol, what rules should govern next time. Repair often fails because people argue at different layers. One person insists, "That happened." The other insists, "I did not mean it that way." Both statements can be true. They are just answers to different questions. One is about event. The other is about intent. Intent can reduce moral severity. Intent does not erase effect. Repair needs a bridge from event to impact to future behavior. Now pay attention to recurring archetypes, because many conflicts are less about the content and more about a predictable defense pattern. One common archetype is the deflector. The deflector redirects from the specific issue to timing, tone, other people's flaws, past grievances, or procedural complaints. The driver is usually self-image protection and reduced accountability exposure. Your best move is to return to the narrow claim. We can discuss tone next. First, did the deadline move without notice? Yes or no? The goal is not to trap them. The goal is to keep the system from dissolving into fog. Another archetype is the escalator. The escalator converts a bounded disagreement into a larger conflict about character, loyalty, competence, or respect. Intensity becomes leverage, and nuance feels like losing. Your response is to de-escalate the scope. I am addressing the missed handoff, not your overall commitment. Stay on the handoff. You are protecting the difference between a fixable event and an identity war. Then there is the minimizer. The minimizer treats impact as trivial because the action was small, unintentional, common, or inconvenient to examine. The driver is fast discomfort reduction and avoidance of behavior change. The protocol is to separate intent from consequence. I understand it was not intended. The operational impact was that the team worked from the wrong version for 2 days. Again, you are making the system legible. The fixer looks nicer but can still break repair. The fixer jumps quickly to solutions, apologies, or process changes before the conflict is understood. The driver is a desire to restore normal operations and reduce tension. The risk is that you accept a solution that does not fit the failure. Slow the sequence. Before we solve it, we need agreement on what failed and what must not repeat. Otherwise, you get a patch, not a repair. The scorekeeper tracks prior injuries, favors, concessions, and failures, then introduces them when the current issue creates leverage. This happens because earlier concerns were never resolved, and the person started collecting receipts. The response is to acknowledge the pattern claim without losing the current branch. We may need a separate pattern review. For this decision, identify the one behavior we are correcting now. That keeps you from relitigating the last 2 years while still taking the signal seriously. The status tester uses conflict to test hierarchy, dominance, loyalty, or public standing, more than to resolve the substance. The driver is position security and audience perception. Here, the simplest intervention is structural. Remove the audience effect when possible, and define the working norm. We will handle the substance directly. Public pressure will not decide the outcome. Finally, there is the repair builder. This is the pattern to look for and to practice. The repair builder names the event, acknowledges impact, distinguishes intent from consequence, and proposes an observable correction, not vibes, not promises, observable behavior. That word, observable, is the hinge. Conflict without repair becomes residue. Repair without changed behavior becomes performance. If you want a reliable way to choose your next move, run a simple decision tree. First, did an observable event occur? If no, do not escalate on inference alone. Clarify perception, gather more data. If yes, continue. Next, can you state the event without character judgment? If you cannot, rewrite it as behavior, signal, impact, and context. You are not lowering standards. You are increasing resolution. Then check for immediate safety risks, coercion, retaliation, or severe misconduct. If that risk exists, prioritize containment, documentation, support, formal escalation, or exit. That is not a normal repair conversation. If safety is not the issue, ask whether this is a first occurrence or a repeated pattern. First occurrence calls for clarification before heavy escalation. Repetition calls for higher verification requirements and lower tolerance for vague repair. Then, did the other party engage the specific issue? If they did not, restate the narrow claim once. If deflection continues, reduce reliance or escalate. Engagement is a key signal of repair capacity. Next, did they acknowledge the event, the impact, or their responsibility in specific terms? If not, treat it as unresolved. Do not increase trust. Maintain your boundary and observe. If they did acknowledge, ask for an observable correction or future protocol. Who will do what, by when, and how will you both know it happened? If there is no concrete correction, request one. After that, watch what happens over time. If corrected behavior does not hold, the pattern is confirmed. Reduce reliance, formalize boundaries, escalate or exit. If behavior holds, accept repair, and update trust gradually, not instantly. The highest stakes branch is not the apology. It is the behavior after the apology. A few failure modes show up again and again. People argue at the wrong layer and never notice. People deliver a premature character verdict and poison the channel. People mistake performance for repair because someone sounded sincere. Groups escalate because there is an audience, not because the issue grew. Or someone keeps forgiving unbounded repetition and calls it kindness, while the system keeps breaking. A practical way to prevent emotional compression is to run a short conflict decision brief before you respond. Start with the observed event, stated without interpretation. Label the signal class, verbal, nonverbal, contextual, or temporal. Name the conflict layer, fact, meaning, impact, responsibility, or future protocol. State the stakes. Mark whether it is a first occurrence or a pattern. Note the power conditions: equal asymmetric, audience present, formal authority involved. Define what repair evidence would count: acknowledgement, correction, verification, behavior change. Then decide: clarify, repair, set a boundary, reduce reliance, escalate, or exit. Finally, name the next observable check. Here is what that sounds like in real life. The product lead changed the launch assumption in a side conversation and did not update engineering. Stakes are rework, missed dependencies, and credibility with the client. It is the second occurrence this quarter. Power is cross-functional peers with an executive audience downstream. Repair evidence is ownership, plus a shared channel update rule, plus a dependency check. Decision is repair with explicit protocol, and escalate if repeated. Next check is simple. The next launch change appears in a shared channel within one business day. That is not cold or robotic. It is compassionate clarity. It turns conflict from a cloud into an object you can reason about. Conflict exposes the operating system. The conflict itself is the first signal. The repair attempt is the better evidence. Name the event, classify the layer, require an observable correction, and let behavior over time be the final verdict.